Hi, Gryoger again on another side quest for our Let's Play series. This is a new side quest where I'm going to be talking about encounters for 5.5e and how to make them in Fantasy Grounds. Um, so to start off, I'm going to give an introduction. A lot of this was covered in my first side quest about the 2014 version of D&D. The 5.5e version covers the 2024 and 2025 version. So instead of saying all that, I just call it 5.5e. So basically 5.5e has bad encounter rules. Uh, they don't work except for levels 1 and 2. I'm not going to moving right along. Challenge ratings. Challenge ratings are how monsters are sorted by difficulty. They're from 1 to 30, and then they're 0 through 1/2. So 0, 1/8, 1/4, and 1/2 are the partial ones. Originally, 1 CR monster was supposed to be an X level party. So this 10th level monster was supposed to be one of these, was supposed to fight a 4-man 10th level party. And a 3rd level one supposed to fight a 4-man 3rd level party, and so on. Usually when you're building standard encounters, you don't want one monster. You usually want one monster for each party member. So what you would do in theory is you divide the party's level by 4. So a 4th level party should fight 4 first level CR monsters. The problem has been that the theory doesn't work because there's been a lot of PC inflation. Because underneath this system, a 20th level party should be fighting 5th level monsters, and that doesn't work. It's more like 9th level. So it's almost doubled, pretty much. All right, so before we finally jeep in, let's talk about action economy. As soon as you start talking about encounter balance, particularly at the very low levels, we start talking about action economy. In the earlier version of 5e, the plain one, it was absolutely crucial because some of the CR4 1/4s were weaker than the CR 1/8s, when obviously it should have been the other way around, and that was because of the action economy or because of special attacks. So when you are particularly setting up encounters for first level parties, you do not want the monsters that have more actions than the PCs. It's very, very dangerous for parties like that because their first level parties are particularly fragile. And if you do tend to go over it a lot, that's when you get TPKs, when the first level parties die. Now, second level, as soon as you get to second level, you don't have to be so strict about it. But at first level, you really don't want the monsters having more actions than the first level, unless you're trying to kill them. All right, so all right, moving on from action economy, let's go ahead and import in a first level encounter table. So one of the nice things about Fantasy Grounds is we can import data in directly, and that's this, and in the tables, and then down this blue import text. This is the import table. You put the name in here and you have to type it. It doesn't take pasting very well. And then you have some settings. You usually want delimited, and you don't want to use comma. Use any other delimiter. You can pick whatever you want. The problem with commas is some third-party monster manuals have commas in their monster name, and that'll screw things up. And then also whether you have rows. Let's take a look at some data so we can see what we're talking about. All right, so I've selected the data we're going to import. So we've got, this is the top row, the header row. Here, let's move this over. So this is the row that we're talking about for the column headers in first row, this one right here. And table ranges is this down here. Now notice this is supposed to be a 1D8 plus 1D12. It's going to come in as a 1D19 plus 1 because it doesn't do pairs of dice. It doesn't do bells. It only does linear tables when you import. Let's go ahead and import it. So once again, you just copy it. Now I'm using Excel, but you can also use Google Sheets, which is free. So I got this, and then I'll paste it. So you paste, Control V. There it is. You can put in. You got to put in a name. I'm going to call this for PCs level. If I could type 01 encounters. You can put 2025, by the way, if you want. But all right. So if this has worked right, when I click import, it should give me a table. And what I'm looking for is I have 1 to 20, so you want to make sure they all come in. And I have some of the, there we go. Make sure that the second group came in. Because one of the most common problems when you're doing this type of stuff is you'll forget a semicolon right here or something. So it'll slide over. Anyway. All right, so that's my import. So once you got it into Fantasy Grounds, this is great, but it doesn't do anything until you link some monsters in. So how do you do that? So before I start linking, I'm just going to quickly talk a little bit about how this table is a little bit different. Actually, the table is fairly similar. When I did this for the 2014 rules, I did only do a 16 down to 16, 2 to 16 table because there wasn't as many entries. One of the things the new monster manual does, and these are out of the monster manual, is they have a new goblin minion. They added some more, they paired certain types of monsters. So we have a weak goblin, which is a CR18, and we have the normal goblin warrior instead of a goblin, which is 1/4. I'm just going to walk through these. So if you look at this table, this is for 4 PCs. You'll notice that if I do 1, if I roll a 1, plus 1 is 2. And if the max is going to be 3 plus 1 is 4. For 4 PCs, this is the action, making sure I don't go over the action economy in by restricting it. So the highest that's going to show up for these CR 1/4 is 4. And most of the time it's going to be less. That's kind of how I'm managing the action economy, and also the fact that the quarters, I have quarters. Now I have a few quarters, 1/4 CR monsters is what I'm talking about. It turns out for first level parties, the monster manual, the new monster manual in general is tougher. The monsters in there are tougher than the other monster, the older monster manual. But there's always exceptions, and it turns out the low CRs, the fractional CRs, particularly 1/8 and 1/4, in fact, in general, got weaker. Because what they did is they were, like I said, there used to be some 1/8s that were stronger than 1/4s. What they did was they made all the 1/8s do about the same damage, all the 1/4s do about the same damage. They made all the 1/8s have about the same hit points, and it is for the 0 level monsters as well. So this means that while action economy is still important, generally speaking, if you need a monster for a first level encounter and you need to grab something, all you need to do is grab a 1/8. One of these for each PC is a pretty good encounter. Now, the exceptions are When do you want to do a little less? If you'll, let's take a look at any. Notice this is a 2 dice. It's the D. It's supposed to be a D8 plus a D12. When we use a D8 plus a D12, this is any dice at Google's. Let's take a look at this bell. See how flat it is? That means that the monsters in the middle have 8% chance. So that's 40% chance. And then the monsters next to it have 7. If you take a look at this, this is 1% chance, 2% chance, 3% chance, 4% chance, 5% chance, 6% chance, 7%, all the way up to 8. And then it goes back down again after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This gives us a nice bell where the stuff in the middle, which is the Kobold Warriors through the Goblin minions, I put the undead on the 7%. So that's all these monsters are what I consider my bread and butter for first level. Look at, notice how the bandits, which are about as vanilla, and the cultists are vanilla as they come. The max amount is 5, so that's 1 higher than the 4-man PC party. So the only thing I do that on are vanillas, the most vanilla monsters ever. And so I will go over a little bit because perfect balance is boring. A little under, a little over is usually what you want. It's just that the first level characters are so fragile. I only do it on the most vanilla monsters like this cultist. Notice I didn't do it on a giant rat. Giant rats are vanillas as they come, but they also have pack tactics. And because of their special attack, I took 1 off. And so instead of doing a 1 to 3, I do a 1 to 2. The same reason for Kobold Warriors. They also have pack tactics, and so you notice they're 1 less. The skeletons are 1/4. So what I did when I had a 1/4 like this, there are no, by the way, CR 1/8 undead. What I did was I paired them with 0 level crawling claws. I did the same thing with the zombies. Crawling claws are 0. The regularization of the actually used to be kind of tough. They're weaker and they do a fixed damage, which means they can't crit, which is incredibly important. Almost all first level TPKs start with a monster critting. All right. So then I got this data in. What do I do with it? Well, you have to link it. So if I start in 1.8, because most of this table is 1.8, let's give a shout out to the Stirge. Stirges are really dangerous. And this is a good example of the action economy. Usually when they regularize, they also regularize the action economy. The troglodyte, which is CR18, used to have 3 attacks around. It now has 1. And that's why you don't have to worry as much about action economy if you stick to CR18s. But like every rule, the Stirge is a problem. The problem with the Stirge is once it hits, it drinks. And on the first level party, that means once they get hit, if they don't kill it immediately, if you look at this damage, which is 6 and 5, if that's not a fighter, the guy's down. And that's average, by the way. It doesn't take into account crits. So this is why this thing's super dangerous. So even though it's a CR18, I lowered it so it's always going to be, the max is going to be 1 less than the party size. So 1 character should not have 1 on them in the worst possible case. So the Stirges are very, very dangerous for first level parties. Let's see. The smoke Mephits are quarters. I'm going to just run through and do a couple of these, and then I'm going to pause the video and do them all. So basically, we're running down. The bandits are vanilla guys, which is why they're right in the middle. And our cultists, same type of thing. Notice how I'm just drag and dropping. Make sure you get this. And by the way, once you finish all this, you should click these and check. It's very easy to miss, either dragging the wrong one on or dropping it in the wrong place. So let's see, like I try to grab the giant weasel instead of the giant rat. So let's do that. We'll do our friends the kobold. So this is one of the advantages where they made more types of kobolds. So it used to be just called kobold. The equivalent right now is the kobold warrior. Our skeletons are quarters. So the giant centipede is a good example. Is it a quarter? Did I just miss it? Yeah. Giant centipedes used to be far too dangerous for first level because they used to do like a D10, 3d6 poison if they made a save. Notice this is what regularization means. They give them the poison condition instead of extra damage, which means these guys are weaker. They'll notice they're also one less than the party size. They don't go over because they're a quarter. All right, so let me pause this and finish the. All right, got all the links in. And one of the things, one tip though, when you're dragging for the second group, make sure you drop it here. Don't drop it over here. That's how you actually get it in the wrong place. It's kind of obvious, but and then you should, like I said, double check these by clicking to make sure it opens up what you expect. All right, so we've imported, and now this thing would roll. But of course, the most important thing is right now it's just importing to chat. So if we roll it right now, oh, and I have manual on. By the way, this is how you test. Suppose you wanted to make sure the smoke methods are working. You could just go 1 and 1. What is this? This is manual dice roll. And it's a setting right here in options. It's in the second one, manual entry. It's for manual dice entry, but it's a great way of checking tables. So if I go ahead and click this right now, notice it'll roll my group 1. See it rolled. And then I could open up my smoke methods. It got 3 of them. So that's you can check your tables that way. But I'm going to turn off manual entry so the table will roll. So now we don't really want for our encounters, we don't really want to go into chat. We in fact want to click it until it goes to encounter. Now when I roll them, it'll go right into encounters. So if I roll there, we got some goblin minions. I do it again. All right, goblin warriors. So once again, remember the bell. Because of the bell, we're going to group around the middle. That's the whole point of the bell curve. It's a 1% chance to get these methods. All right, that's kind of the basics. I want to talk a little bit more about perfect balance. The reason we're rocking this is called rocking the difficulty a little bit, and we're doing this by numbers. There's other ways of rocking difficulty, but by using different CRs, for example. But one of the most basic ones is rocking the number of monsters appearing. Finally, I use Excel. Once again, you can use Google Sheets if you wish. And importing is awesome. I do all my editing and stuff thinking about in Excel, and then just import them. And if I mess up, just change it and re-import them. So once you got them linked. One last thing, I'm going to talk a little bit quickly about some of the changes of the monsters. Let me just bring this over. So quickly, the smoke methods are these are the only CR1 quarters which don't have a lower CR to balance them out. So these are non-damaging methods, basically. A lot of the methods blow up. These guys don't. The Stirges I went over are extremely dangerous, which is why they're actually stronger than they were in the earlier monster manual. The tadpoles are vanilla standards, melee only, but they do have what their claim to fame is they're resistant and have magic resistance. So they're supposed to be let your melee combatants shine. the Acolyte got the monsters in the multiverse treatment. In other words, it has instead of like we have one per day type thing. Instead, it's got the at will, and then it's got we can do this once per day, blast. Notice how it's a different casting. Thing that makes the priest acolytes interesting, and they used to be called acolytes, is that they had this divine aid once a day where they can cast bless or sanctuary. Healing word is already a bonus action as a bonus action. This is important because a lot of the monsters, the multiverse spellcasters, what they did was they moved what usually should have been a cantrip down to be a normal attack, which means this guy can cast bless and then use radiant flame, right? If he uses his bonus action divine aid once a day. And he also, of course, do that with a healing word already. So they're a little bit stronger. They used to not have a good any armor class at all, or AC 10. One thing I will point out, as you go through the new monster manual, they are horrible with their gear, particularly for armor class. They always pick the more expensive gear. So I would suggest that you take a look at it and see what's going on with that, because it's kind of bad in many cases. Oh, I don't have it loaded, but anyway, so yeah, their gear is bad. Generally, you want the lowest cost gear for the same AC. Okay. I think that's all I wanted to talk about for this one. Don't forget to change the encounter and, of course, lock it. And that's it for this video.